podcast, where God is most glorified by his love and provision for all people. Welcome your host, the Director of Apologetics for Texas Baptists, an adjunct professor of theology, and a local teaching pastor, Dr. Leighton Flowers.
Welcome back to Soteriology 101. Today we're going to answer a question I get quite often about the Lamb's Book of Life. Are our names recorded before the foundation of the world? Before we dive in, I want to just remind you of a few things. There at Soteriology 101's website, there's a search feature there. If you've got questions and you're looking for an article, you can find all kinds of material there at the website. Please go there first before sending me a message, because more than likely I'm not going to be able to have time to get to all the messages. Or go to our Facebook page. There's a lot of professors, PhDs, who are on the Facebook page who believe much like I do, who would be glad to engage and answer some of those questions for you. I'm actually going to be traveling for a while, and I won't be able to answer a lot of the emails and questions that I'm getting. Also, if you can help us, please help us spread the word, either by retweeting or sharing on your Facebook page the different broadcasts as they come out. That helps a ton just to get the word out. Also, if you can support us, shout out to our patrons, because if you go right over here to the support link at Soteriology 101, it's right up there in the top right corner. If you want to give just a few dollars a month, it helps, and it goes a long way to help support this broadcast. And you can become one of our patrons. We would not be able to do this without our patrons. I'm absolutely certain of that, and I thank you so much for those of you who are our patrons, who are helping us on a regular basis. That gets the word out and helps us to move up in the search features on Google to where they're not getting all the Calvinist answers first. We want to be out there. I don't mind if they see Calvinist what they say. I'm glad for them to read what Calvinists think, but I would like for them to be able to compare it, because I believe people have free will and the choice to choose between different views. And so I want them to hear what our view is with regard to these questions. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you also have that option there. But we need the help to get the word out. It's the only way that we're going to be able to curtail this generation of understanding of God's love and provision for all of humanity. So help make that happen. Now let's dive into the question. I'm going to be resourcing and looking for some resources from Richard Cords, a friend of mine from examiningcalvinism.com. And so he's a contributor and a friend, and got his permission to republish this a long while back, and just wanted to use it as a way to answer this question, because I think he does a good biblical sound job of really answering why Calvinists have misinterpreted these passages with regard to names being written before the foundation of the world. So if, for example, we look at Revelation 13:8, and we also see Matthew 25:34, we see this. We see all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Now notice I emphasize the word from. Those who can see the screen or not listen to the audio only podcast, you can see that I've underlined the word from there, because that's going to be the focus of this discussion. So really pay attention to the word from, and how Calvinists, I think, have switched that word to make it better support their particular theological worldview. Now, you can be the judge for yourself. I'm going to try to put the evidence in front of you for you to see this. For example, what we see from Calvinist John MacArthur, who comments, quote, 7 times in the New Testament, believers are identified as those whose names are written in the book of life, and he gives a list of those verses. The book of life belonging to the Lamb, the Lord Jesus, is a registry in which God inscribed the names of those chosen for salvation before the foundation of the world. This phrase is used as a synonym for eternity past and they list a bunch of other verses where it's used in that terminology. Believers are doubly secure because the book of life belongs to the Lamb who has been slain. Not only the decree of election, but also the atoning work of Christ seals the redemption of the elect forever, end quote. That's from the MacArthur New Testament Commentary in Revelation 1 through 11, page 50. Thus, the Calvinistic paraphrase of Revelation 13:8 and some other passages is to change the word from to the word before. But clearly those two words carry very distinct meanings. As MacArthur similarly comments on Matthew 25:34, he says, quote, "The Lord designed his kingdom from before the foundation of the world, and he designed who would be in it from before the foundation of the world," end quote. That's from Understanding Election from John MacArthur as well. So another verse that demonstrates this point is Matthew 19:8. Quote, he said to them, because of your hardness of heart, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning, it has not been this way. So evidently the word from the beginning does not mean before the beginning, but from the beginning, from Genesis, the beginning. That's what it means. Now notice, all statements, hear this, all statements where before the foundation of the world is used are given reference to Christ. So John 17:24, for example, Ephesians 1:4, 1 Peter 1:20. When you see the word before, pro is in the original language Greek. When you hear before the foundation of the world, it's always in reference to Jesus, and rightly so. He's eternally existent before the foundation of the world. So you rightly say before the foundation of the world when talking about Jesus. But all statements where from the foundation of the world, apo in Greek, from the foundation of the world is used, it is in reference to man, moving us from a point of reference forward. And it makes sense because man has a beginning point in Genesis. We have a beginning because we're creatures that were created, unlike Christ, the eternal one. And you see those passages listed there where apo is used from the foundation of the world, Matthew 25:34, Luke 11:50, Revelation 13:8. So here's the question. What does from the foundation of the world mean, and what is the impact of adding or changing it to the word before the foundation of the world? Answer, before the foundation of the world indicates before Genesis, whereas from the foundation of the world indicates from Genesis to the present. Therefore, it is incorrect to equate written from the foundation of the world with written before the foundation of the world. Luke 11:49-51 states, quote, for this reason also the wisdom of God said, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them will kill, and some of them they will persecute, so that the blood of all the prophets shed since the foundation of the world may be charged against this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who was killed between the altar and the house of God. Yes, I tell you, it shall be charged against this generation. If you similarly insert before, the Greek pro, then you would have to conclude that the prophets were martyred before they were born, which makes no sense, right? So therefore it is reasonable to conclude that the names that were written into the Lamb's Book of Life, which are said to be written from apo, not pro, but apo, the foundation of the world, were written as people became Christians, okay, in time, as a response to, as a result of their belief. Okay, so that's the difference between those two meanings. So MacArthur, I think along with many other Calvinists, have altered the biblical text of from the foundation of the world, and have made it, they've kind of slightly switched it over to say before the foundation of the world. Well, the King James Version reads, quote, and all that dwelled upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Now here's the question. Why does the Calvinistic leaning English Standard Version, the ESV, why does it translate Revelation 13:8 as before the foundation of the world instead of from the foundation of the world? Y'all look at this real quick. All right, here it is on blueletterbible.com, which is a great source if you're looking for, the original languages and different translations. Here's the King James Version. That's all happens to be on the screen. Whose names are not written in the book of the Lamb slain from, the word from there, from the foundation of the world in King James, which is apo, right here. You can see that in the original Greek. And so you scroll down and you can even look at the word apo here. Look, root form, Greek, apo, okay, from. And now go over to ESV, okay, so here's the ESV version, and notice what they've got, been written before the foundation of the world. That's the same Greek. I mean, Greek doesn't ever change, okay? You got different translations. It's still apo, Greek, okay? So it hasn't changed there. The translators changed it, okay? Why? Really, really, I think, good question. Why did they change that? Answer unknown. We have to suspect that the Calvinist, going back to Richard's article here, we have to suspect that the Calvinist-led committee felt it better supported their sociological worldview and translated the Greek word apo as before instead of from. The Greek word apo is since or from. That's how it's translated. The Greek word pro is before, which makes sense. Pro meaning something that comes beforehand. We all know that. The Greek word apo is used in Matthew 13:35, 25:34, Luke 11:50, Hebrews 4:3, and 9:26, and in Revelation 3:8 and 17:8. The Calvinistic translation, the ESV, seems to be erroneous at Revelation 13:8. as a mistranslated apo as before. What's telling is that in the parallel versions of Revelation 13:8 and Revelation 17:8, in which apo is used in the same exact way, the ESV properly translates apo in Revelation 17:8 as from, but improperly translated apo in Revelation 13:8 as before. Okay? And Calvinists have just continued this same erroneous conclusion, taking the word before and changing it to the word from because it fits their systematic. Maybe unintentionally because they've got the ESV and they're trusting those commentators and those translators to do it correctly. And so I'm assuming that possibly some Calvinists are just not aware of this error. Indeed, the Lamb is before the foundation of the world, as per 1 Peter 1:20, but the Revelation 13:8 from the foundation of the world is not modifying the Lamb, but modifying the writings of names. When used of time, apo can only mean from in the sense of since the foundation of the world. The point identified is the beginning point of the period in view. Now, I go on to write underneath here, Richard's article clearly spells out the differences between traditionalists and Calvinists, but I also want to draw our attention to the problem within the ranks of Calvinism. If you have studied anything about the Lapsarian controversy, you will recognize right away that interpreting passages about the Lamb's Book of Life as being completed before the foundation of the world would necessitate a high supralapsarian position, which has typically been rejected by mainstream Calvinists, among Southern Baptists at least. Most Southern Baptist Calvinists, like a David Platt or a Matt Chandler, for example, a J.D. Greer, those guys who are Calvinists, they're lower forms of Calvinists, not typically supralapsarian. So even translating the Lamb's Book of Life as being written before the foundation of the world, as if God selecting certain individuals, wouldn't fit their normal way of looking at the different Lapsarian views. And so I'd be interested to explore how a Calvinist who is not a supralapsarian would maintain their perspective of the Lamb's Book of Life being completed by God unconditionally before the foundation of the world. So hopefully that answers the question. From a traditionalist perspective, is that when you interpret the text rightly, the text really makes a lot of sense and you don't have a lot of problems with it. Blessings to you. See you next time. Bye-bye.